Please subscribe to my channel and do hit the bell icon.
Hello to all dear students. So today we are going to discuss about nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is one of the oxides of nitrogen with the molecular formula NO. It is a free radical with an unpaired electron. Nitric oxide is the smallest endogenous signal molecule and the only one which is gas at a normal temperature. Suppose this is your blood vessel, and if you cut your blood vessel, you will come to know it is made up of 3 layers. The outermost known as the tunica externa, middle one is the tunica media, and the innermost layer is the tunica interna, and it is in the tunica interna where you will find endothelium. So suppose this is your tunica interna and it is lined by a squamous epithelial tissue known as the endothelium. Similarly, this is tunica externa, tunica media and tunica interna along with the endothelium. It was Forsgård and Zwatsky who proposed that when acetylcholine interacts with the blood vessel, it will cause vasodilation, or you can say relaxation of the vascular smooth muscle. Only when the endothelium lining was intact but not denuded. Okay, so this endothelium lining is very much important, and why we are giving so much emphasis on this endothelium lining is because whenever this acetylcholine interact with the blood vessel, the endothelium lining, from the endothelium lining there will be a substance released on the smooth muscles, and this substance is nothing but the EDRF, that is endothelium derived relaxing factor, because of which it will lead to vasodilation. Okay, so whenever acetylcholine or any other vasodilator it interact with the blood vessel, the endothelial cells which cause release of a substance, that is EDRF, and because of this EDRF it will lead to vasodilation, or you can say relaxation of the vascular smooth muscle. Later on in the year 1987, it was found that this EDRF is nothing but your nitric oxide, and soon afterwards a number of other vasorelaxants like histamine, serotonin, bradykinin and various other agents were also shown to produce vasodilation by release of EDRF only. Okay. Next we'll talk about the generation and fate of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is produced in the cell from the amino acid L-arginine with the help of the enzyme nitric oxide synthase. So this nitric oxide synthase will act on L-arginine and it will convert it into L-citrulline. Now you can see what is the difference between L-arginine and L-citrulline. Both are almost same, just this NH2 is not present in citrulline, and this NH2 group is utilized by this enzyme, and this along with the molecular oxygen, NADPH, FMN, FAD, heme and tetrahydrobiopterin, that is H4B, these all acts as coenzyme for the enzyme nitric oxide synthase to produce our nitric oxide. The rate of nitric oxide production depends on the activity of nitric oxide synthase enzyme, because the substrate is normally present in excess. L-arginine is always present in excess. If the nitric oxide synthase is active, it will cause production of nitric oxide, but if the enzyme is not active, there won't be any production of the product, that is nitric oxide. So there is no problem with the substrate, that is L-arginine. The synthesis mainly depends upon the activity of the enzyme. Now some words more about this enzyme nitric oxide synthase. There are 3 isoforms of nitric oxide synthase recognized, that is neuronal nitric oxide synthase, also known as NNOS or NOS1. Next, endothelial NOS, sorry for the spelling, endothelial nitric oxide synthase, also known as ENOS or NOS3. And lastly, inducible nitric oxide synthase, also known as I nitric oxide synthase or NOS2, that is nitric oxide synthase 2. Now the names are mainly depends upon, means they are designated depending upon their localization. Like neuronal NOS mainly present in neurons, whereas endothelial NOS mainly present in the endothelial cells of your blood vessels. Okay, and these two only, that is NNOS and ENOS, are constitutive enzymes. That is, they are synthesized at uniform rate, which is relatively low. Now, what is the location of the inducible NOS? These INOS are mainly found in the macrophages and monocytes and neutrophils, and they are induced by the bacterial endotoxins and cytokines. That means these INOS mainly have got a role in case of inflammation. In case of inflammation also there will be vasodilation. So that vasodilation is induced by the enzyme INOS, which is mainly produced under pathological condition. But under normal physiological condition, at that time NNOS and ENOS are being produced. Next, this nitric oxide which has been produced, it exists only for 4 to 10 seconds, and it due to its rapid reaction with oxygen, it is getting converted into nitrite, and even it also reacts with the metalloprotein, especially with HB, to produce your nitrates, and both these nitrate and nitrite both are eliminated out via the urine. Okay, so this is regarding the generation and fate of your nitric oxide. Next, we'll check out the action of nitric oxide on your vascular system. So this nitric oxide is a potent vasodilator, and they serve to regulate the vascular tone. We have got veins as well as arteries, and nitric oxide will act as vasodilator for both veins as well as for arteries. But the efficacy of this nitric oxide is more for veins as compared to the arteries, and the reason behind this partiality is the nitric oxide synthase enzymes are available in abundant amount in veins as compared to arteries. Therefore, nitric oxide is a potent venodilator but a poor arteriolar dilator. More, you can say it is a good preload reducer but a poor afterload reducers. Okay. Next little bit we'll talk about the mechanism of the vasodilation produced by the nitric oxide. Now, suppose this is your endothelial cells which is present in your tunica interna, and this one is your smooth muscle cell which is available in your tunica media. Okay. This endothelial cells contains the receptor which is a GQ type of receptor. It can be muscarinic M3 receptor or histaminic H1 receptor or bradykinin B2 receptor. So whenever any appropriate agonist binds with this receptor, it will get activated and it will cause activation of the enzyme, that is phospholipase C. Phospholipase C will act by converting phosphatidyl inositol diphosphate into inositol triphosphate and diacyl glycerol. In the endothelial cells, there will be endoplasmic reticulum, which is a storage house for calcium, and this IP3 will cause outflux, or it will cause release of calcium ion from this endoplasmic reticulum. This released calcium will bind with his friend, that is colmidulin, to form a complex, that is calcium colmidulin complex, and this complex will cause activation of this endothelial nitric oxide synthase. Obviously, since it is endothelial cells, here you can find the ENOS only, and this ENOS will do its work of synthesizing nitric oxide, that is, it will convert arginine into the nitric oxide. Next, this nitric oxide will diffuse into the smooth muscle and will cause activation of an enzyme known as soluble guanylyl cyclase. This guanylyl cyclase will convert guanosine triphosphate into cyclic GMP. This cyclic GMP will cause activation of the enzyme protein kinase G. Now, what this protein kinase G will do? Protein kinase G will cause MLCK, that is myosin light chain kinase dephosphorylation, which leads to relaxation. Little bit I need to emphasize on this myosin light chain kinase dephosphorylation thing. Suppose this is your smooth muscle and these are your sarcomeres. This is your actin. This is myosin heavy chain. This is myosin light chain, and this green thing you can see, it is the binding site of the myosin to the actin. Now this is your enzyme myosin light chain kinase. Now kinases means these are the enzyme. Kinase are the enzyme that will cause phosphorylation. Now we have got the name myosin light chain kinase, means this enzyme will cause phosphorylation of the myosin light chain. Okay, so this will cause phosphorylation of the myosin light chain. When this myosin light chain gets phosphorylated, it will cause binding of the myosin to the actin and thereby leading to contraction. Contraction means constriction of the blood vessels. Okay, but what happens, that protein kinase G, what it will do? It will cause phosphorylation of this enzyme, and when this enzyme gets phosphorylated, it will get deactivated. Deactivated means it is unable to perform its work. What was its work? Its work was to cause phosphorylation of myosin light chain, which it is unable to do so. Okay, so what we can see over here, the protein kinase G will cause phosphorylation of the myosin light chain kinase, because of which it is unable to produce actin myosin interaction, thereby leading to relaxation. In addition to this, protein kinase G, it will also cause phosphorylation of the calcium channel. Okay, so protein kinase G also causes phosphorylation of the calcium channel, reducing the influx of calcium ion, thereby reducing the availability of calcium colmogulin complex. Further interferes with the myosin light chain kinase mediated actin myosin interaction, promoting the muscle relaxation. Okay, so this is how nitric oxide will produce vasodilation, or you can say relaxation of the vascular smooth muscles. The populations who are suffering from the congestive cardiac failure or angina pectoris or hypertension, they are often treated by the drug nitric oxide. So for this we have got nitric oxide donors. These are the compounds which contain a nitric oxide or similar moiety in their structures that is released in the body, mostly enzymatically, to elicit smooth muscle relaxation. Organic nitrates, nitrites and sodium nitroprusside are the clinically useful nitric oxide donors. They are also called as nitrodilator. However, the pattern of vasodilation produced by different nitric oxide donors differs according to the nitric oxide species that is released and the mechanisms involved in the release process. So we have got few examples of nitric oxide donors: glyceryl trinitrate, also known as nitroglycerin, isosorbate dinitrate, isosorbate mononitrate and sodium nitroprusside. We have got many more, but I have mentioned just 4 names. So quickly we'll check out in general the mechanism of action of these drugs. So these nitrodilators, they are rapidly denitrated enzymatically in the smooth muscles to release the nitric oxide. And the enzyme involved is aldehyde dehydrogenase. In case of glyceryl trinitrate, this enzyme is present in the mitochondria, whereas for other drugs, this enzyme is present in the cytoplasm. Now, once nitric oxide is produced inside a smooth muscle, it will follow the same pattern. That is, it will cause activation of the enzyme guanylyl cyclase. This enzyme will convert GTP, that is guanosine triphosphate, into cyclic GMP. Cyclic GMP will cause activation of the protein kinase G, and protein kinase G have got 2 targets. First one is myosin light chain kinase enzyme, and second one is the calcium channel. So it will cause phosphorylation of both the thing. It will deactivate both enzyme as well as the channel, thereby leading to relaxation. Okay, myosin light chain kinase phosphorylation leads to relaxation, and the phosphorylation of the calcium channel will also lead to relaxation of the blood vessel. That means vasodilation. Next, how it is useful means these agents are working as a preload reducers. They reduces the preload. So we'll check out this thing. So we know this is your left atria, your left ventricle and the arteries. Okay, so wherever oxygenated blood is concentrated, we'll show them in red color. Then these are the capillaries where oxygenated blood are converted into deoxygenated blood. Then these are the veins, the right side, the right atrium and the right ventricle, and from the right ventricle the blood first moves to the lungs and then finally moves to the left atria of the heart. Okay, Now nitrates, they mainly causes dilation of the veins. They will dilate the veins, and what happens when the veins are dilated? It will cause pooling of the blood into the venous system. When the blood is pooling into the venous system, then what will happen? It will reduce the venous return. When venous return is reduced, then the filling of the left side of the heart is also being reduced. Okay, so this decreases the venous return, means it decreases the preload also, and you can say the end diastolic size and pressure is reduced, thereby there will be reduction in the cardiac workload. Okay, so this is how it is producing the preload reduction. How it is reducing the preload? By causing venodilation. When venodilation occurs, the blood will be pooling into the veins, because of which the venous return is less, the preload is also reduced. Okay, similarly, it is also used as an afterload reduction. So nitrates also produces some degree of the arteriolar dilation, slightly decreases the total peripheral resistance or afterload on the heart, and this action will contribute to the reduction in the cardiac workload, which is directly proportional to the aortic impedance. So this is how the usefulness of nitric oxide is been seen, by reducing preload as well as by reducing the afterload. Now quickly we'll check out few important points regarding these drugs. I have given some writing material so that you people can make your own notes out of this. So few important points regarding the glyceryl trinitrate. It is a volatile liquid which is formulated by absorbing on the inert matrix of the tablet and rendered non-explosive. The tablets must be stored in a tightly closed glass container, not plastic container. The sublingual route is used when terminating an attack or aborting an imminent one is the aim. The tablet may be crushed under the teeth and spread over the buccal mucosa. It acts with 1 to 2 minute peak blood level in 3 to 6 minutes because of direct absorption into the systemic circulation. Plasma half-life is 2 minutes. Duration of action depends on the period it remains available for absorption from buccal mucosa. When angina pain is relieved, the remaining part of tablet may be spit or swallowed. Okay, so glyceryl trinitrate have got a very high first pass metabolism. Whenever you consume the drug orally, it will be metabolized, means 99% of the drug will be metabolized in the liver. So for this reason, we are using sublingual route of drug administration. We are, means any person who is facing an attack of angina, so that person will take the tablet of glyceryl trinitrate, place it below the tongue and allow the drug to get absorbed into the systemic circulation. And when the person feels okay, means see, the onset of action is very fast. Within 1 to 2 minutes the drug action will be initiated, and when the person feels that okay, now I am normal, means the person can spit the tablet out of his mouth, or even he can swallow, because after swallowing also there won't be any action of the drug produced. A sublingual spray formulation has been recently marketed, acts more rapidly and is more stable than the sublingual tablets. Hepatic metabolizing capacity can be overwhelmed by administering a large dose, that is 5 to 15 mg daily orally. Sustained release oral capsules containing much larger amounts of glyceryl trinitrate can be used for chronic prophylaxis. Nitroglycerin is readily absorbed from skin. A transdermal patch has been developed which provides steady delivery for 24 hours. The patch starts working within 60 minutes and has a bioavailability of 70 to 90%. The effect starts fading after. Intravenous infusion of glyceryl trinitrate provides rapid, steady, titrable plasma concentration for as long as desired. It has been successfully used for unstable angina, coronary vasospasm, hypertension during cardiac surgery, etc. Begin with 5 microgram per minute, adjust according to need. So this is regarding the glyceryl trinitrate. Now coming to another drug, that is isosorbate dinitrate. See, both glyceryl trinitrate as well as isosorbate dinitrate have got very high first pass metabolism. Therefore both are not given, or both are never given via oral route. It is solid but similar in properties to glyceryl trinitrate, can be used sublingually at the time of attack, that is slightly slower in action than glyceryl trinitrate, peak in 5 to 8 minutes, as well as orally for chronic prophylaxis. Okay, so this drug is also given via sublingual route, but the onset of action of isosorbate dinitrate is little bit slower as compared to glyceryl trinitrate. Glyceryl trinitrate will have got an onset of action within 1 to 2 minutes, whereas for isosorbate dinitrate it is showing onset of action after 5 to 8 minutes. Pre-systemic metabolism on oral administration is pronounced and variable. The half-life is 40 minutes, but sustained release formulation may afford production for 6 to 10 hours. Last dose should not be taken later than 6 p.m. to allow nitrate level to fall during sleep at night. Okay, this last point you'll get to know after some time when I'll be teaching about the nitrate free period. Okay, and this was regarding the isosorbate dinitrate. Now coming to another drug, that is isosorbate mononitrate, which don't have that much of first pass metabolism problem. This is an active metabolite of isosorbate dinitrate. When administered orally, it undergoes little first pass metabolism. Bioavailability is high, inter-individual differences are minimal, and it is longer acting, that is half-life is regarding about 4 to 6 hours. Last dose is to be taken in afternoon. Sustained release tablets once a day in the morning. Okay. Next, coming to the last drug, that is sodium nitroprusside. Now, the last drug is sodium nitroprusside, and an important thing regarding this sodium nitroprusside are, these are not only good venodilator, but they are also very good arteriolar dilators. Okay, so the last three drugs which we were discussing, they are potent venodilator but poor arteriolar dilator. But sodium nitroprusside are sodium nitroprusside can equally dilate veins as well as arteries. Administered via intravenous infusion, nitroprusside equally dilates arterioles and veins by releasing nitric oxide as well as by directly activating guanylyl cyclase. It is rapidly acting within seconds and consistently acting vasodilator with brief duration of action, that is for 2 to 5 minutes, so that vascular tone can be titrated with the rate of IV infusion. Nitroprusside relaxed both resistance and capacitance vessels, reduces the total peripheral resistance as well as cardiac output by decreasing venous return. In patients with heart failure and ventricular dilation, nitroprusside improves ventricular function and cardiac output mainly by reducing aortic impedance, that is afterload, but also by lowering atrial filling pressure, that is preload. Endothelial cells, RBCs, and maybe other cells split nitroprusside to generate nitric oxide, which relaxes vascular smooth muscle. This occurs both enzymatically and non-enzymatically. The enzymes involved are different from those that produce nitric oxide from glyceryl trinitrate. Non-enzymatically, it is converted to nitric oxide and cyanide by glutathione. This may be responsible for the different pattern of vasodilator action compared to nitrates, as well as for the fact that no nitrate-like tolerance develops to nitroprusside action. Nitroprusside has gained popularity in the management of hypertensive emergencies. 50 mg is added to a 500 ml bottle of saline or glucose solution. This infusion is started at 0.02 mg per minute and titrated upward with a response 0.1 to 0.3 mg per minute is often needed. It decomposes at alkaline pH, and on exposure to light, the infusion bottle should be covered with black paper. Nitroprusside is split to release cyanide. The latter is converted to liver to thiocyanate, which is excreted slowly. If larger doses are infused for more than 1 to 2 days, excess thiocyanate may accumulate and produce toxicity including psychosis. Side effects mainly due to vasodilation are palpitation, nervousness, vomiting, perspiration, pain in abdomen, weakness, disorientation and lactic acidosis, that is caused by released cyanide. Lastly, nitroprusside has also been used to produce controlled hypotension in refractory congestive heart failure, pump failure accompanying myocardial infarction and in acute mitral regurgitation. So this is regarding sodium nitroprusside and regarding the 4 types of the nitric oxide donors. Next, one important point regarding these nitrates are we need to maintain nitrate free period. Nitrate free period means we should not give nitrates round the clock 24/7 to a patient. We should provide nearly 6 to 12 hours of nitrate free period to a patient because there is a problem of tolerance. See, the enzyme which is responsible for converting nitrate to nitric oxide will get saturated very easily. So we need to give rest to that enzyme for nearly 6 to 12 hours. Like suppose for example, there is a nitrate whose duration of action is for 6 hours. So 6 hours means we need to give that drug to a patient for 4 times a day, like in morning, in afternoon, evening and at night. Suppose in morning the person took the drug, the nitrate, and the enzyme converted nitrate to nitric oxide and the action will be produced for 6 hours. After 6 hours, again in the afternoon, the person will take nitrates, the enzyme will convert nitrate to nitric oxide and the action will be produced for 6 hours. Again in the evening time, the person will consume the nitrate and the enzyme will convert nitrate to nitric oxide and the action will be produced for the 6 hours. Again in the night, again if the person will take nitrate, now the enzyme will be unable to convert nitrate into nitric oxide because now the enzyme got exhausted. So this is known as tolerance. So for this reason we need to provide a nitrate free period. So we need to skip one drug. Like in night time we should not give nitrate because if we provide nitrate, anyway the nitrate is not able to convert into nitric oxide because the enzyme is failing to do so. So we will provide a nitrate free period at night time for nearly 6 hours. Again in the morning the person will take the drug and now the enzyme is got reactivated and it is able to convert nitrate into nitric oxide. So this is known as nitrate free period. One more important thing in relation to this nitrate free period is the Monday disease. Now what is this Monday disease? Monday disease means in the time of World War II, the nitrates were used as explosives, and in the factories, the workers who are working in the factories for making these explosives, they were continuously getting exposed to these nitrates. Okay. Now what happened on the Sunday, the factories will be closed and the workers will be sitting in their home. So on Sunday, the workers are not exposed to nitrates. So on Sunday they had a nitrate free day. So on Sunday the enzyme will get reactivated in those workers, and on Monday when the workers will go back to the factory for working and when they get exposed to nitrates, so the activated enzymes will convert nitrates into nitric oxide. And what the nitric oxide will do? Yes, nitric oxide is a potent vasodilator. It will dilate the veins, which may lead to flushing and a headache and a decreased blood pressure. So these all symptoms was seen on Monday by those workers. Okay, and next after this Monday has been completed, the enzymes will get inhibited. So after inhibiting, whenever they will expose to the nitrates, like on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, whenever they are inhaling nitrates, those nitrates are unable to get converted into nitric oxide because the enzymes got deactivated. Next, again on Sunday, when they are not going to the factory, when these workers are not getting exposed to nitrates, the enzyme will get reactivated, and on Monday again these enzymes are able to convert nitrate into nitric oxide, and every Monday the workers were facing this kind of problems. So this is known as Monday disease. And another important thing in relation to these nitrates are, one very important drug interaction has been seen with these nitrates. See, nitrates, when we consume nitrates, these nitrates are converted into nitric oxide, and this nitric oxide will activate the enzyme guanylyl cyclase, which will convert GTP into cyclic GMP, and this cyclic GMP will cause vasodilation. Okay, this thing you know. Now there is an enzyme that is phosphodiesterase. Now what this phosphodiesterase enzyme will do? It will cause metabolism of cyclic GMP, because of which the level of cyclic GMP will be reduced. Okay. Now there is a drug known as sildenafil. What this sildenafil will do? Sildenafil will inhibit this enzyme. Now when this enzyme will be inhibited, then what will happen? There won't be metabolism of cyclic GMP. That means the cyclic GMP will be available in high amount. And when cyclic GMP level is elevated, it will lead to more severe vasodilation, thereby leading to more severe hypotension. So it is said that nitrates should never be given along with sildenafil. It is a kind of drug-drug interaction. Lastly, we'll check out the uses of your nitrates, and these uses you can remember from the mnemonic A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, with A is angina pectoris. Nitrates are effective in classical as well as variant angina pectoris. B is for biliary colic. Biliary colic due to gallstone or morphine responds to the sublingual glyceryl trinitrate or isosorbate dinitrate. C is for cyanide poisoning. Nitrates are also used for the treatment of cyanide poisoning, and we'll check out a little bit about this thing. This is cytochrome oxidase. And where have you listened to cytochrome oxidase? Yes, it is an enzyme which is present in the electron transport chain, which is responsible for the synthesis of ATP. That is nothing but energy production. Now what happens in cyanide poisoning? The cyanide will interact with the cytochrome oxidase enzyme and it will inhibit its functioning. That means in case of cyanide poisoning, the ATP synthesis will be reduced. So for treating this, we need to give a compound known as methemoglobin. So cyanide, in presence of methemoglobin, this cyanide will leave the cytochrome oxidase and it will interact with the methemoglobin, so that cytochrome oxidase can perform its work normally. So methemoglobin is a kind of antidote. But later on we found that we already have hemoglobin. So why we are taking methemoglobin? Why don't we convert our hemoglobin into methemoglobin? So for this reason we gave sodium nitrite, and this sodium nitrite converts hemoglobin into methemoglobin, to which the cyanide will interact, leading to production of a compound that is cyanomethemoglobin. Now this cyanomethemoglobin is also a toxic substance, and to remove this toxic substance we are giving an antidote, that is your sodium thiosulfate. So sodium thiosulfate interacts with cyanomethemoglobin to give sodium thiocyanate, and this sodium thiocyanate is a water soluble substance which can easily excreted out from our body. Okay. So this is how nitrates can be used for the cyanide poisoning. Now another thing is D. D is for myocardial infarction. See, D means dil ka daura, and dil ka daura in English is nothing but myocardial infarction. Nitrates are frequently used during evolving myocardial infarction with the aim of relieving chest pain, pulmonary congestion, and limiting the area of necrosis, obviously by reducing their preload. Okay, so this is how it can be used in the treatment of myocardial infarction. Next, E is for esophageal spasm. Sublingual glyceryl trinitrate promptly relieves the pain. Nitrates taken before a meal facilitate feeding in esophageal achalasia by reducing esophageal tone. And last use is F. F is for failure, and you know what kind of failure, that is congestive cardiac failure. Nitrates afford relief by venous pooling of blood, that is by reducing venous return, that is your preload, and decreasing the end diastolic volume, improvement in the left ventricular function. Intravenous glyceryl trinitrate is the preparation of choice for the emergency use. So these all are the uses of nitrates, and with this I have completed the topic nitrates. I hope you people understood this video and found it helpful. Thank you for watching.